So I think it's safe to say that 2023 was considered by many to be one of the best years in recent memory for big game releases. From new entries in long-running franchises like Tears of the Kingdom and Final Fantasy XVI, to remakes of all-time great horror titles like Resident Evil 4 and Dead Space, to the return of dormant classics in Baldur's Gate 3, and I don't know, maybe you could even throw Alan Wake 2 into that category. There were so many big games that really delivered in ways that the general gaming audience was looking for, and many of these will be remembered as all-time great games. And I played almost none of them. This year I'd like to change that. While there aren't currently as many big game releases scheduled for 2024 as there were in 2023, I'm not really interested in big game releases at this point in my life. Additionally, I just do not have the time to play more than, a small handful of games in a year. The podcast keeps me extremely busy, and outside of the games we cover there's not much else I can make time for. However, I am planning on making time for at least 5 games, all of which look fantastic. At number 5, I have a game called Replaced, an absolutely stunning 2.5D retro-futuristic action platformer that I cannot give enough praise to when it comes to its approach to visuals. As big game releases push more and more for realism, I become more and more eager for projects that take a highly stylized approach like this. When it comes to mixing 2D and 3D assets, this is exactly what I'd like to see more of. The developers at CodeSync have set out to combine cinematic platforming with free-flow action combat while telling an engaging dystopian story set in an alternative 1980s. It takes place in a fictitious Phoenix City where an artificial intelligence called Reach is trapped in a human body and tries to understand what it means to be human in some of the worst conditions humanity has ever seen. The only reason I'm not placing this game even higher on this list is because I'm not sure how confident I can be that the game will actually launch this year. It was originally slated for 2022, but saw major delays because the studio was based in Ukraine. Nevertheless, whenever it does launch, I will be there day one to cover it. At number 4, I've put Hyper Light Breaker. Again, I'd probably put this even higher if we were getting the full game launch in 2024, but it's only coming to early access. Still, even as an early access title, I'm much more excited for this than almost any AAA game coming out this year. Hyper Light Drifter is in my top 10 games of all time, and while I would have liked Studio Heart Machine to stick with a 2D game world, I do understand the desire to move to 3D development. I loved the tone, atmosphere, music, and tight action of Hyper Light Drifter, and if they can capture some of that again with Breaker, it will almost certainly be my jam. Of course, Solar Ash wasn't as well received as Hyper Light Drifter was, but now that they already have a 3D game under their belt, I think that they can move forward and launch off of that and do something really special here. This time around, the developers have set out to create a 3D co-op action RPG, which we desperately need more of, with roguelike elements in an open world. I'm very excited for it and will definitely pick it up in early access. At number 3, I have Unicorn Overlord, a tactical role-playing game from Vanillaware, the studio behind acclaimed titles such as Odin's Sphere, Dragon's Crown, and 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. While I haven't played all of Vanillaware's titles, I really like how instantly recognizable their games are due to the unique art style shared across all of them. I fell in love with Muramasa back in 2009, and one of the studio's lesser-known titles, Grand Knight's History, is probably the closest point of reference from the development team's library, seeing as it's also a tactical role-playing game, though Unicorn Overlord seems to be much more interested in bringing back the style of classical strategy games that were more commonly seen in the early 1990s. Ogre Battle March of the Black Queen and even Ogre Battle 64 would likely be better games to compare when getting an idea of what to expect from Unicorn Overlord. Unlike Tactics Ogre or Final Fantasy Tactics, or even games like Fire Emblem and Shining Force, Unicorn Overlord does not use a grid-based system for movement. In this respect, it's much more like a real-time strategy game, bringing in turn-based combat mechanics when your units encounter enemies in the field. I was actually surprised to learn that the game has been in development for 10 years, only seeing delays because other Vanillaware projects kind of pulled key developers away to assist in getting those games ready for launch. However, Unicorn Overlord looks fantastic, and I am going to be covering it when it launches in March. It's hard to believe it's been 3.5 years since I made this video on Eiyuden Chronicle, while it was still running its Kickstarter campaign. I was a backer, of course, and have received regular updates from the studio on the game's progress, yet, despite all of that, for a while I kind of forgot about this game. It's likely because I just got busy with other things, but when I saw this trailer from last year's Tokyo Game Show, I got really excited again. Everything looks so polished. For those who aren't aware, this game is being written and developed by the original creator of the Suikoden series, and this looks every bit like a worthy spiritual successor, even down to the collecting of a massive list of characters, up to 100 heroes according to the game's subtitle. From the exploration to the turn-based combat and beautiful sprite art, this hits every note of what I loved about classic Japanese role-playing games, and I'm so excited to finally get my hands on it. And finally, my most anticipated game of next year, without question, Dragon's Dogma 2. I didn't even play the first game until just this last year, and it still holds up, 12 years after its initial release, as the best action RPG combat I have ever seen in a game. It is so dynamic, with so many different ways you can string together different attacks and abilities. There are tons of classes, equipment, and party combinations you can play with, all of which are viable and fun. It was insane how balanced this game was, and despite being a little janky at times, I was just totally addicted to it. I loved how you could climb onto larger enemies to reach weak spots, something I'd always wanted to see expanded on since I played Shadow of the Colossus in 2005. Also, some of the magic in Dragon's Dogma 1 is completely mind-blowing. Seeing that we're finally getting a proper sequel after all of this time is really exciting. Hopefully, the wealth of amazing ideas that were introduced in the first game will be expanded upon and polished into something that can truly rise up as a Game of the Year level experience. If you haven't played the first game, you definitely need to give it a shot and jump on this hype train with me for Dragon's Dogma 2. It looks absolutely dope. One other game I was considering putting on this list was the new Mana game, Visions of Mana. I actually didn't see this trailer until just a few days ago, but I was really impressed by what I saw. However, this series does not have a great track record in recent years, and so I'm not sure how confident I am that Square Enix will do what is really needed to make it into a great game, but I am keeping my eye on it, I am excited about it, and I will probably cover it when it comes out. But I just don't have enough faith that it'll be a truly great game at this point, but I'm hoping that it will be. In the last couple of years, our channel has become much more focused on our podcast. We have really made it a priority to make sure that we deliver a new episode every week and that the quality of our commentary is as high as possible. And now that we've gotten a really good system going for that, I would like to get more active in stepping back into some of the content that we were creating before the podcast became our priority. More video essays, more coverage of games that are coming out now, and more impressions and thoughts on games that are not being covered on the podcast. Since today is January 1st, I know a lot of people are making their New Year's resolutions, and this is one for me. To make sure that alongside a weekly podcast, we are also releasing weekly videos that do more of that kind of thing. So if you are one of our viewers who have been waiting for more of that content and have not been watching the podcast or are not interested in the podcast, I just wanted to let you know that this video hopefully can give you a taste of some of what I'm looking forward to covering as the year goes on, and just wanted to make that resolution or that promise that you will be seeing more of that here in 2024. So thank you for hanging in there with us, thank you for watching, and we'll see you again real soon with a new video.